Hello, everyone. It's me, Arden Lee. This is my assistant, Virgil, if you haven't met him already. He's been hanging out with me today while I make my videos. And today I want to talk about how to call your power back from bullies and energy vampires, people in your life who have been, perhaps without your explicit knowledge, sucking away your energy and violating your boundaries and making it feel unsafe for you to take back your agency and make good decisions for yourself that are in the interest of your self-care and your autonomy and your highest good. Before I get into that, as always, I would love to invite you to subscribe to my channel. I want to stay in your feed. I want to stay connected, so let me know. Write some comments also if there are topics that you would like to see me address in the future. And yeah, smash that like button for me if you would. So what I want to talk about today is so many of us grow up with patterns, myself included, where we are taught, we learn, however, unconsciously, that there are people whose needs we need to satisfy above our own. Most times this comes from our family members. This is pretty common. We have started talking a little bit in our society about the way that we treat children, the way that we say, go hug grandma, even if they don't want to, the way that we teach them that they're not allowed to make decisions for themselves or about their bodies or about what they do. For me, if you know any of my story at all, it was about a custody schedule. I wanted to be able to emancipate myself from the abusive parent who had custody of me part of the time. And I was told, no, you are not allowed to do that. Not only was I not allowed to do that, but I was punished and humiliated for even trying. So naturally, I learned, quote unquote. When I say learn, I don't mean learned in truth. I don't mean that this is a truth that I learned for myself. I mean that it was a distortion, a cognitive distortion that was patterned into me by the results of my behavior. Because again, as children who are being raised by people that we depend on, it's so often that those people who are our major caretakers, who are raising us, have ways of, whether they're conscious of it or not, have ways of making us prioritize their needs over our own, So it's very typical, wash your hands before dinner, you're eating this and you're not eating that, or, come to Thanksgiving or whatever it is, or you have, like I said, you have to hug grandma. It's rude not to hug grandma or whatever. And maybe, maybe you really don't want to hug. Maybe you don't like a lot of physical contact. Maybe for you, self-care is more about, not getting a lot of touch. Maybe things are too overstimulating for you. Maybe you want to go off and play in the corner instead of having to sit there at the Thanksgiving table with all your stuffy relatives or whatever, because you're a kid and your body is craving things. And maybe your body sometimes craves things that are not always great for you, and that's where parenting comes into play, where your parent's job is to nurture you and foster your growth in the right directions that serve your own best interests and your own highest goods. But as we know, everyone's human and people get it wrong a lot of the time. So we get these beliefs put on us often, by the people who are raising us, that our own needs and our own sense of autonomy doesn't matter, or at the very least, it doesn't matter anywhere near as much as the needs of other people matter, especially if they're people that we want or need to keep in our life because we're depending on them for survival. So unfortunately, these patterns don't just stay within the bounds of our families. We can then transfer these patterns to other relationships as well. So for example, if you grew up with a parent who always expected you to meet their needs before they would even consider meeting any needs of your own, or if they told you that your needs were silly or selfish or greedy or frivolous or whatever way that they had of minimizing that, then you as an adult might get into a relationship with someone and think, oh, my partner's needs must also be more important than my needs because my needs are silly and selfish. And if I'm trying to put them at the forefront of things, then that's just not, that's not going to work for anybody. So what I want to talk about today is how to call your power back from that. And that's a lengthy knot to untangle in anyone's life. But the primary thing that I want to talk about is the backlash that you're going to get when you start saying no to people, and you start being okay with disappointing people, and you start you start saying, no, I am going to take care of my needs first. So when we set an intention to heal, we start making changes in our lives, we start breaking a lot of our old patterns that we've been used to that have been getting us the same results time and time again. So I might suddenly start saying, you know what, I am going to start prioritizing myself. I am not always going to, I'm just trying to think of an example. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be shamed. I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to go out for drinks with my girlfriends tonight because, you are threatened by that, or you want me or need me or whatever. No, I'm actually going to take care of myself. And if you're not okay with that, we can examine that. But ultimately, I need to be able to make decisions for myself. And if you're not okay with that, then you can go, This happens a lot in our friendships as well. We often have a lot of friendships that are based in people getting their needs met from us. And we keep giving them our energy. And we do so because we think like, well, they're my friend. I really love them and I want to help them out. I want to be there for them. But ultimately that energy is not reciprocated, and it starts to become taken for granted. It starts to become actually depended on. So what I tell people when you start to cut off these relationships, here's the important point. We only have so much bandwidth in the day. There's only so much you can do. You only have so much willpower, only so much decision-making power, only so much energy to spend on things, and frankly, only so many hours in a day. So your bandwidth, your energy is paramount. And we're so often brought up in ways that usurps us of our energy and of our bandwidth because we are programmed to be people pleasers, right? We bend over backwards for people because we love them. And we end up neglecting our own needs and taking care of ourselves last. So one of the things that happens when we start to change this and we start to say, all right, you know what? It's time for me to actually get serious with my life. And if I want to move forward on my goals, if I want to create a life that I love, I actually have to start living for me and making my energy and my decisions. I have to start using all of my bandwidth for myself rather than for other people. And I have to stop making decisions that please other people and not me, because ultimately it's my life and I deserve to be happy. When we start doing that, one of the things that you're going to notice is there will be backlash, and that is natural. It is an expected reaction because it's physics. It's like we teach, when people talk about cutting those energetic cords to people, there's sometimes that snap back. They feel it. They're all of a sudden like, oh, where did my energy supply go? There were things that I needed from you. There were things that you provided for me, and I'm not just going to let you go so easily. So the example that I love to give is, let's say that you're an 8-year-old kid and every day you go to school and there's a group of bullies who loves to threaten you and take your lunch money. And every day since the beginning of the school year, you've gone to school and sure enough, they stop you on the playground and they say, hey, give us your lunch money. And every day you give it to them and you're like, all right, here it is. This is just what it is. It's just how life is. And there you go. I'm just going to accept this from you. And then one day you decide, I'm not going to give you my lunch money anymore. I'm done with that. That lunch money actually needs to go to me to buy my lunch and to nourish me and to sustain me. So one day you go to school And sure enough, that same group of bullies stops you on the playground and you're like, no, I'm not going to let you take my lunch money anymore. What do? What do they do? Well, naturally, you think they're just going to be like, oh, okay. No, of course not. They're going to say, hey, I expect you to give me this feed, to give me this energy, to give me this whatever this thing is that I have been draining from you, that I've been usurping from you. I've become dependent on that feed and I need it more. It's like when you try to leave a narcissist, then they start with the waterworks and the tears, or they bully you, or they intimidate you into staying, or they try to tell you nobody else will ever love you, or whatever it is, whatever it is that they're doing to manipulate you to stay in the relationship. It's kind of ridiculous, right? Because if you're like, wow, how do you even like me if you're treating me so badly, and yet at the same time you're manipulating me to try and get me to stay? Well, that's the answer, is because they're feeding off of that supply from you. So when you do that, you are going to get pushback. That's only natural. Those bullies on the schoolyard are not just going to let you go and say, oh, okay, I guess we'll go pick on someone else today. No, they're going to try and threaten you, and they're going to try and intimidate you, and they might even, in the metaphor, beat you up, and you might have to get the school administration involved or whatever. The point is, I work with a lot of people who start calling their power back and start establishing their boundaries, and then they allow their energy to be affected by that pushback, by that backlash that they get from people who are like, oh, hey, no. We want more of your energy, actually. So we're going to actually keep guilting you into doing more things. And they're like, why is this not working? Like, why am I actually feeling more stressed out than I was before? Well, it's rather like a detox, right? A detox, you purge all of those past behaviors. A detox isn't pleasant, it brings everything up to the surface that was not working so that it can be released, so that it can leave the body, right? So when those patterns come up, those bullies are absolutely going to fight back, and they're going to try and get you to keep doing what you've been doing, to give them their energetic supply. But after a while, if you're like, no, I'm not doing this anymore, forget it, then they're going to have to go somewhere else for it. But just know and anticipate that that's going to happen, that it's a natural reaction to that. And it'll be so much easier for you to deal with, because you're like, oh, of course you're trying to bully me or intimidate me. You're just mad that, I'm not giving you what you're looking for anymore. There can also be friendships that when you cut off that supply to someone, you'll suddenly find that they're just not your friend anymore, because they just went and found someone else to get that from too. Sometimes it's not even a backlash. It's just like, oh, this well ran dry, so now I have to find a new well. I wasn't interested in this friendship for reasons of actual love or connection or mutual support. I was interested in dipping my bucket into the well and continuing to get my feed and my fix. And so therefore, if this well has run dry, I'm just going to go find another one. I've heard of people who have, gone through breakups, and their partner was like, wow, they just moved on right away. Like they just like, how did that even happen? They didn't even take any time to mourn or to grieve. And it's like, well, it's because they weren't maybe in a relationship with you. They were in a relationship with your supply, and they moved on to the next person to give them that fix. And the only difference between you and that person is you were onto them, and they knew that you were getting sick of their shit and giving them, whatever that fix was, indulging them in that all the time. And they knew that you were about to run out, so they jumped onto the next thing, and it just wasn't personal. It happens all the time. Right, Virgil? So anyway, be prepared for that backlash, and you won't let it affect you. Like, of course, it's not going to be pleasant, and it might stress you out, but I promise you this is part of the healing process. And it's part of getting rid of those connections, severing those connections, so you can call in friendships that are right for you. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you in the next video.